And now for a look at the situation on the other side of the border, let's bring in Mkhaimer Abusada. He is a political science professor at the Al-Azhar University in Gaza, and that is where we've reached him. Mkhaimer, thank you for making the time. Can you just describe the situation in Gaza right now? What's it been like?
Well, good evening, and many thanks for hosting me. Well, let me say that last night was so horrible that the bombardment of the western side of Gaza City was so massive, so extensive that a whole neighborhood was very much erased. It's not very far from where I live. It's about 400 meters from where I live. The bombing was so horrible that it shook the whole neighborhood. Building after building after building were extremely destroyed, massively erased. The number of Palestinian dead have reached 900 up until this moment. Around 4,500 Palestinians are wounded, with no electricity, no water, no food. Personally speaking, I had to relocate from my apartment to my brother's apartment. I'm speaking to you right now. Last night we had no electricity, we had no internet connection, at least for this night, where I moved with my brothers into my brother's apartment. We have solar cells that keep our internet connections running. What is happening is a collective punishment against more than 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu and the Israeli army is asking the Palestinians to get out of Gaza. That is unbelievable. That is unrealistic. How could you ask 2 million people to leave? And where? The Egyptians are saying they are not gonna allow the Palestinians to enter into Egyptian territory. The Palestinians are very much, 2 million people are trapped between the Israelis from one side and the Egyptians, who are not going to allow 2 million people to move into their own territory. It's so horrific, so terrible. I've never seen something like this in all of my life.
Can you just describe when you were outside, when you were moving, just what you saw around you?
In the early hours of this morning, I just walked to see how much the damage. It was overwhelming. I wanted to drive my car, but I couldn't. Rebels were blocking the street. Electricity wires were fallen. Phone lines were all over the place. It's like much more than devastating than an earthquake. The whole neighborhood was completely destroyed. I could not even drive my car. I walked around, I saw the damage, then I went back to my apartment. A few hours later, we were instructed that the neighborhood where I live, that will be targeted, and we had to evacuate. My family is very much, we are separated. Part of my family is in one place. Me and one of my sons is another place. It's a humanitarian catastrophe that is taking place. The Israelis are asking almost half of the population to move from east of Gaza to the center of Gaza City. Now they're asking part of the Gaza City to go somewhere else. It's just, as I just mentioned, the Palestinians are trapped and not knowing where to go. A human corridor or a humanitarian corridor is badly needed for the civilian population. With no food, no electricity, no potable water. And the Israelis even threatened the Egyptians today that not to allow Egyptians to supply Gaza with food, fuel, or anything, that if they supply Gaza with any item of that, it will be targeted by the Israeli jets. I don't know how much the Israelis are pushing, for how much they are going, but it's just, you keep pushing the Palestinians into the corner, and that's what you get. That's what happens. And I know that what happened to the Israelis is very painful, very tragic, but they're doing the same mistake again and again to the Palestinians by imposing collective punishment into on more than 2 million people in the Gaza.
countries around the world have called on Israelis and Palestinians to preserve the safety of civilians as much as possible. Is that possible?
Well, unfortunately, that is not happening from both sides. Israel, as I described, targeted a whole neighborhood and different areas in almost all of the Gaza Strip. The same time, Hamas today responded by targeting the city of Ashkelon after warning the residents of Ashkelon to evacuate and leave. Unfortunately, the civilians are paying the price of this conflict, and I think it's the responsibility of the international community, the UN, to get in and impose a ceasefire immediately to save lives and to ensure a humanitarian corridor where the civilian population can go to more safer areas instead of being bombarded and killed in the streets of Gaza.
Mkhaimer, thank you. Mkhaimer Abusada is a resident of Gaza City.
Thank you very much.